Hey, good morning, everyone. How are you? I am just checking in to say hi and see what everyone's up to these days. I haven't been on because I've been busy and there's a lot going on, as you guys know from possibly seeing my posts. We had another loss in the family, and I had a work related trip that was, this is my second year going, and it's an absolutely amazing experience. Hopefully, not offending by sharing this story to any other family for this particular family reunion that I attended. But it just so happens that they are a family that has been joining for 113 years. Yeah, African American family that have been joining forces and connecting for 113 years. What's more fascinating about it is that they were able to um, find out their history as far back as the enslavement of Sylvie, who was from Guinea, Africa, and she was brought over here, and of course enslaved. And it is suspected that the plantation owner had her as one of his concubine, and he fathered 7 children. And those 7 children, ultimately, one was a male and the other 6 were female. And what's really interesting about the story is that when the plantation owner died, the families went to court fighting over property, plantation, and of course children and enslaved people. And I say enslaved people because no one's born a slave, were also amongst that up for debate, and whether or not they would be sold because they were looked at as property at the time. So in court, it was agreed that the children should not be split up. The children should not be sold and divided for monetary gain. And as a result, all 6 sisters were able to stay together. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? So, by the grace of God, as they've spoken about on numerous occasions, and they did again this weekend, they have more surnames. They believe it's up to like 6,000 or more surnames now, all offspring from these 6 women. So I can't even put into words how moving the experience is. The some of the original family get together and have their own little intimate time, and then they all come together. They pray together, they laugh together, they break bread together, they go through a museum of collections of pictures that have been donated so that people understand where they come from and who their relatives are, some of which who are very famous. Um, but what I took away that was most fascinating about the weekend was one of the ancestors of the actual plantation owner was there for the weekend. He evidently is a gentleman who is heads up finance for one of the neighboring communities down in the Charlotte area, and he made a decision that he wanted to, in his own way, be part of reparations, in that he was willing to come to this reunion, introduce himself to everybody, and make it known that he, in fact, was an ancestor of slave owners. Certainly, I didn't get a chance to meet with him personally, but I could tell by his demeanor and by his openness and how he walked the rooms and engaged with people, that not only was he humble and appreciative for the opportunity to be invited and participate in this special weekend, but he was respected and honored as someone who had the courage to come forward as a white man and say, without saying it maybe, or by saying it with his presence, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what you had to go through. I'm sorry for what your ancestors suffered during enslavement. And if my presence here can make amends for that, and I can be part of the solution by being a better man, then that's what his presence spoke for. So of course he was that little something extra special. Not to mention, seeing all the young children in their talent shows, and the singers and the operatic singers and the dancers and the comedians, and um, watching this family. Some were strangers and some were very, very close. Um, look at it as a blessing, not only that they had all got together, but also to reflect on the fact that even in a case where an infant had been ripped from his mother's womb, or mother's breast, and another infant had been um, taken away by slave owners, um, by after a mother had been struck by lightning, found his way back to his family 30 years later. And their testimony and their story is that what ultimately God plans to rejoin or have together, He's going to make sure it happens no matter what gets between them. And so it was just an amazing weekend. Hard and difficult because I heard a lot of my cousin, and of course I had to reflect on my own, who I sadly had not seen in a long time and lost without having another fix, another hug, another laugh, another smile, another joke. So, life is funny like that. Um, I didn't want to focus too much on politics today, and I definitely wanted to focus on some of the good things that I heard about. I've not been able to really keep up in depth about what's been happening in the crazy world, in the crazy house, I'll call it these days, because that's what it is. It seems like it to me anyway. But I heard some really good news about what Cuomo is doing in New York as it relates to pushback. He's pushing back against the NRA, and the way he's doing it, I just want to remember the name. Um, the way he's doing it is pushing it back against the organization that provides liability insurance for gun holders, basically insuring them and protecting them so that if they, use their guns in a way that is questionable, there's no legal fees. They don't have to worry about anything but, calling up their insurance company, kind of like when we have a car accident and saying, hey, I made a mistake with my gun, maybe shot it off in someone's back, and, and I don't want to be sued, so, as crazy as it sounds, that's kind of what capitalism looks like sometimes. It's good stuff, but it's really crazy stuff in the process. So, the fact is that Cuomo has pushed back so hard and so diligently against the NRA and the insurance company shutting them down, that ultimately would have supported those who hold guns and insurance to do what they will with it, accidentally, I don't know, whatever. I'm not even going to get into the accidents that might be on purpose. But, so, the NRA is crying, oh my God, we might have to shut down our headquarters because now we are having to fight back against all these lawsuits that are coming up against us as it relates to someone illegally carrying a gun or having a gun and using it inappropriately. So now the NRA has to carry that burden. Well, guess what? All due respect, but every single one of us out here has to carry our burdens. If our tree falls on somebody else's house, we carry the burden. So NRA, if you want to keep shoving guns into the hands of 12-year-olds and allowing illegal firearms, then guess what? You're going to have to foot the bill just like the rest of us. Small guys out here, yeah, you're going to have to defend the folk that want to carry like all the other corporations out here, and my girl knows what I'm talking about, that have been negligent in doing their work because their bottom line was more important than human life. So, I'm saying that to say kudos to Cuomo for raising some hell, pushing back. Of course, the NRA is trying to sue him for defamation of character, but you know what? NRA, you never really had character to begin with if you didn't care about babies in schools and all you cared about was making money. I'm trying to think. There was, oh, yes, yes, yes. Good news. A federal judge pushed back and basically told the administration that not only the administration, the Trump administration, and his buddies, his cronies, not only did the administration not come up with a viable argument to justify shutting down DACA, but in addition to that, they failed so in such a manner that legally they have no justification to do so. They cannot, and they will not shut down DACA. So that is a major, major win for us. Of course, Sessions is up in arms and raising all kinds of hell, I'm sure. That's what they do. They cry and they stomp and they twist the law to work for them when they needed to, and then they twist the law against everybody else when it's not, so that's just what they do. But anyway, so there's some really, really, really amazing news when you hear that we're being effective on a local level, we're being effective on a judicial level, and we are making some changes. I heard a couple of disturbing stories. One was about a young woman. I believe she was in Smith College, and this is the second or third incident at least where a young African American female or male or whatever have you was walking on campus or in on campus grounds. This particular case, the young woman was in the cafeteria and she was on her break, and she was doing a summer program as an assistant to a professor. Evidently, there was a young woman on campus, a Caucasian female, who had an issue with her, race-related. So she decided to have a little fun and play a little game and call the cops and have her reported as not belonging on the campus. Well, the campus is a small women's college with only about 2,500. The young woman of color, obviously is a minority in a major sense of the word, and as a result of that, this young woman felt it was okay to call and say she wasn't supposed to be there, even though she knew, because she was a coworker, she knew that she not only belonged on campus, but she was invited. So that was resolved with the university saying, we're sorry, and this is not how we handle things, and we stand by, diversity and diversity education. Although there was some prior issues where trustees had made derogatory commentary against students and people of color, staff of color. So, fast forward, where am I going with the whole race-related subject? What I'm trying to get to, I guess, is, knowing about these stories, hearing about these little things that are happening locally, empowers us to be more aware, whether we're sending a child off to school. It gives you considerations about whether or not you know the backdrop on what their policies are and their position is on varying subject matters as it relates to race, education, policing in the community, diversity, training. What are they doing in terms of protecting your child or your loved one's interests? How are they? How is the policing in that community as it relates to students of color? It goes back to the same thing I've been saying all along. We need to be educated. We need to do our homework before we step into a store, before we put our money into a corporation, before we step into or send or encourage someone to go to a particular school, before we invest or spend or put our money into a particular bank, or whether or not we're buying insurance, whatever it is that we're involved in on a day-to-day basis, there are concerted efforts to use our dollar to impose suffering. Um, I mean, just take into consideration the Flint water, and that 4 years later, there are people still with no good water, and the good water is being stolen by a corporation. So, you know, and we're in America, guys. We're in America. Did you forget? We're in America. This is the United States of America, and there is poisonous water, and no one has done anything about it yet because big dollars, corporations, seem to have the ability to influence whether poor, black, minority, and just poor families in general have good water. Now, there is a line drawn in the sand. There's a line, there should be a line drawn in the sand. So, that's a perfect segue to the last part of what I wanted to talk about, which was this whole idea of the super PAC. And the super PAC, for many of you, I'm sure most of you know, um, you know, they're they're basically the big money gang of corporations that fund politicians. And in my reading, to try to catch up on a couple of things, I learned that the new Democratic coalition is pushing really hard to run on tickets that no longer take money from these super PACs. And what does that mean? What it means is that we, we Americans, we the voters, we get to have some say in who's in office without those potential candidates being influenced or swayed or strong armed or held, chained by the ankles as to how they can represent us, how they can stand out for us, or speak up for us, on varying topics, whether it be guns, water, uh, ageism, sexism, uh, you know, racism. And when you don't have some big bully standing behind you saying, well, I gave you $10 million and therefore you need to shut up on this subject. Well, by the grace of God, this coalition is growing stronger. There are more candidates who are making a decision that they want to participate in new government that is outside the confines of corporate manipulation. So we may not see or hear about all the good things that are going on behind the scenes, but there are good things. But that doesn't mean, it doesn't require us to do our due diligence, know who the candidates are, know what their ticket, what their platform is, know why and how they need your financial support. And there was something said about how, a lot of these presidents, the Clinton administration, the Trump and the Obama administration, made a good, at least somewhere in to 10 to 25% of their donations were from less than $200 in donations. So, think about that as it relates to just trying to run on a local ticket, as a council person or a congresswoman or congressman. The money certainly are needed, but not, the numbers aren't as high. So we do have an influence there. We have always had an influence when it comes to the dollar. Um, so I, I plead, I plead to each one of you, to continue to be aware of what's going on around you. Don't fall asleep. Don't stay asleep. Don't have the attitude that it's not my problem, or my vote or my interest or my dollar doesn't make a difference. Because every single time you go out and you buy one product that funds a candidate that could potentially be harming your disabled child by cutting back on funds, or harming your child, grandchild, who happens to go to a school district that is not getting fair and adequate financing for books and for teachers to purchase supplies, or if we take it for granted. It could be the car you're buying, or the brand name of clothing that you're investing in, and you're not aware that behind the scenes this person or these people are using your money against you. Your money against you. Think about that. Let that sink in. So it just goes back to stay awake, stay awake, stay awake. I have been in a weird space, contemplating a lot, thinking about a lot, frustrated about a lot, and I find that the only way for me to reset is to look for the positive, in really dark and dismal and not so positive situations, and sometimes it's more direct, in personal relationships, and sometimes it's on a larger scale, and it's not direct in that it's right in my face, but it affects me or people that I care about. And to be honest with you, I care about everybody. I don't want to see anybody hurting. I don't want to see soldiers' wives who happen to have never been documented properly packed up and shipped back to Mexico 20 years later and leaving their husbands and their children behind. I don't want to see people being beaten in a store because they debate with the store owners about whether or not they were satisfied with the services. I do not want to see, uh, hear these horror stories about this race baiting and this manipulation, this police manipulation. Thank God more of our policing is getting sharp and aware and realizing that they're being used. Bottom line, they're being used. They're being used to pit blacks and whites and others against one another, and they're also being called to situations and scenarios. I mean, people are out here attacking babies. I mean, babies, raising hell about babies being in their neighborhood who happen to be brown skinned, making $1 without a permit. Come on, that's just, hello world, are you nuts? Anyway, they're the same people who would have a problem with a woman not choosing to have a child, but yet have a problem with a child trying to earn a living. Crazy world we're in. But I think I think I'm saying all that to say that I realized that as I'm swimming around in this sea of you know dolphins and sharks, um, that I do have to reset every once in a while. I do have to pull back. I do have to regroup. I do have to reflect. I do have to take into consideration that I can allow these negative things to be absorbed into my pores and affect my spirit. And the last thing I want to do is affect my spirit, because if I affect my spirit, I affect other people's spirits. And my intention is never to be negative towards anybody. My intent is to spread as much love and care and concern, um, and positive out there as I can. That said, on the flip side of that, I'm doing my damnedest to stay away from things that are too upsetting for me to deal with, too emotionally draining for me to handle, and or that uh, feed into an attack or negativity of me or any other person for that matter. um, or for the greater groups, for greater groups of people. So just trying to help you understand, you guys, because I know I'm in and out. But again, we've had loss recently, not once but twice. It's mentally and emotionally draining, especially when it comes as a shock. It just, throws your equilibrium off, and gets you a little crazy. So, on that note, I did want to just put my prayers out to those people who have recently lost a loved one, those people who are struggling with these awful fires, those people who have devastation coming at them, or who have recently had devastation coming at them, or are enduring some kind of difficulties. As you know, I'm standing by health-related issues where some friends are concerned, and I'm with them in spirit, if not physically. So I'm praying for them, and I ask you to continue to keep them in your prayers. Another friend just reached out that her sister is going through something, and you have been on my heart as well. So if you see this video, I love you, and I'm thinking about you, and I'm praying on you, and I'm praying on your sister. And I'm going to tell you guys something I have been hearing a lot about, and another friend just shared with me, and I had already heard about it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. A friend of mine from work told me, B17. There are some mistruths and some inaccuracies about what cancer is and what causes cancer and how it can be healed. And there are people who are using homeopathic methods to heal cancer or to stop it, and shut it down in their body. Something as simple as peroxide suffocates it. B17 can protect your body from it coming on and possibly even destroy it. And I'm not even close to knowing anything about the subject of homeopathic medicine, although I wish I knew more. But knowledge is power, gang. So I cannot reiterate enough. I cannot reiterate enough. Do your homework. Do not walk blindly into the dark, following the masses, following the media, following the rules, telling everybody, well, this is what the doctor said, and that being the end all to it all. Because before we had all this amazing medication, and before we had all this amazing, research and stuff like that, we had to go back to the roots, literally and figuratively. So go back to your family roots, go back to your roots that are below your feet in the ground, kind of like this, okay? Go back to your roots, and you might be pleasantly surprised with what you find. On that note, I pray that you all have an amazing, amazing, amazing day. If I don't catch up with you all, I hope you have an amazing week. There's a lot of exciting, end of summer stuff going on. I hope I can catch even a little bit of it. Been busy, but I'm going to try to steal that time. And love you all. Praying. Stay strong. Stay happy. Oh, yeah. It's hot out there. Not only do you want to bring water for yourself, but bring an extra bottle for somebody else. Make it a good day, and it's a better day when you can do something for somebody else. So when I leave you guys right now, I'm getting ready to run over to the homeless shelter, drop off some water, because they're going to be out there all day. And yeah, they get their 3 meals a day, and they have their roof over their head, but nobody's giving them a bottle of water to sit outside with in 93-degree temperatures. So bring a bottle of water with you wherever you're going today. And if you see someone who's thirsty, sitting on a corner, or in need of refreshment, or a homeless person, give them that bottle of water. Anyway, stay stay strong, stay loved, stay amazing, stay happy, and to all my family, no matter what we're going through, I love you. No matter what you're going through, I love you. And to all my friends, those near and those far, sometimes it's a season, sometimes it's a lifetime, sometimes it's just a moment that goes by before we talk again. But that doesn't mean you're not in my thoughts and my prayers. Talk to you soon. Peace and love.